Welcome, Class 9 students, to an exciting journey into the world of biological classification. Today, we are diving deep into the Five Kingdom Classification chapter, specifically exploring the Four Kingdom Classification system. We'll start with the basics, gradually building our understanding through easy, medium, hard, and hardest levels. Get ready to uncover how scientists first grouped the incredible diversity of life on Earth. Let's kick things off with the easy level. We'll understand the fundamental ideas behind the Four Kingdom classification. Imagine trying to organize every single book in a massive library without any categories. That's what classifying living organisms helps us do. It's about grouping them based on what they have in common and how they differ. This organized system makes it much easier for scientists to study and understand the millions of different life forms on our planet. Before the Four Kingdom system, life was often just split into two big groups, plants and animals. But with new tools like microscopes, scientists started seeing tiny, strange organisms that didn't fit perfectly into either of those boxes. This discovery showed that we needed a better, more detailed way to sort out all the living things. This need led to the work of scientists like Ernst Haeckel. In the late 1800s, he proposed a system that started to include more groups. Eventually, this evolved into the Four Kingdom classification. So, what were these four kingdoms? First, we had Monera, which included all the simplest, single-celled organisms without a true nucleus, like bacteria. Then came Protista, for other single-celled organisms that do have a true nucleus, such as amoeba. Plantae included all the plants that make their own food, and Animalia covered all the animals that eat other organisms. It's important to remember that in this system, fungi were still considered part of the plant kingdom. Now, let's test your understanding of the easy concepts. Here are 3 practice questions for you. Take a moment to think about the answers before moving on. What is the main purpose of classifying living organisms? Name the 4 kingdoms recognized in the Four Kingdom classification system. And finally, which kingdom includes organisms like bacteria? Good luck! Ready to go a bit deeper? Our medium level will explore the reasons behind this classification and its key features. The journey from just 2 kingdoms to 4 was driven by scientific curiosity and new discoveries. Initially, classification was very basic, simply dividing life into plants and animals. But as microscopes improved, scientists began to see a whole new world of tiny, single-celled organisms. Many of these microbes had characteristics that didn't quite fit the traditional plant or animal definitions. Some could move like animals but made their own food like plants, or vice versa. This ambiguity highlighted the urgent need for a more refined system that could accurately categorize this newfound diversity, setting the stage for more complex classification models. Ernst Haeckel was a key figure in this evolution. In 1866, he proposed the kingdom Protista to house these enigmatic single-celled organisms, expanding the system to 3 kingdoms, Protista, Plantae, and Animalia. However, the story didn't stop there. Further studies revealed a fundamental difference in cell structure. Some organisms, like bacteria, lacked a true nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. This crucial distinction led to the establishment of a 4th kingdom, Monera, specifically for these simpler, prokaryotic organisms. This separation was a monumental step, recognizing cellular organization as a primary basis for classification. So, let's look at the 4 kingdoms' main characteristics. Monera included all prokaryotes, like bacteria, which are single-celled and lack a true nucleus. Protista comprised mostly single-celled eukaryotes, like amoebas and algae, which have a true nucleus but don't fit into the other 3 eukaryotic kingdoms. Plantae consisted of multicellular, photosynthetic organisms like trees and mosses, known for their cellulose cell walls. Animalia included multicellular, heterotrophic organisms like humans and insects, characterized by their lack of cell walls and typically their ability to move. While a huge improvement, this system still had a notable limitation. Fungi, despite their unique absorptive nutrition and chitin cell walls, were often still grouped under Plantae, setting the stage for further classification refinements. Time to challenge your understanding with 5 medium-level questions. What was the primary reason for moving beyond the two-kingdom classification? Who proposed the kingdom Protista, and what types of organisms did it initially include? What key cellular difference led to the establishment of the Monera kingdom? Describe the main nutritional mode for organisms in the Plantae and Animalia kingdoms. And finally, what was a significant limitation of the four-kingdom system concerning fungi? Pause and ponder your answers. Now, let's dive into the hard level. We'll analyze the four-kingdom system in greater detail, comparing it with other classifications and understanding its theoretical underpinnings. The evolution of biological classification from Linnaeus's two-kingdom system to Haeckel's multi-kingdom approach marks a significant paradigm shift driven by technological and conceptual advancements. Linnaeus's system, based on visible features, served its purpose for macroscopic life. However, the advent of high-resolution microscopy in the 19th century unveiled a universe of microorganisms whose unique characteristics couldn't be shoehorned into plant or animal. Haeckel's introduction of Protista in 1866 was a crucial first step, acknowledging a distinct group of diverse unicellular eukaryotes. This initiated a move towards classification based on more fundamental biological properties, rather than just superficial resemblances, reflecting a deeper understanding of life's complexity and diversity. The definitive formation of the four-kingdom system stemmed from the profound discovery of the prokaryote-eukaryote divide. Cytological studies, particularly Edward Chutton's formal coining of these terms in 1937, highlighted that organisms either possess a membrane-bound nucleus and organelles, eukaryotes, or they don't, prokaryotes. This fundamental distinction led to the creation of kingdom Monera for all prokaryotic organisms, such as bacteria and cyanobacteria. This separation was pivotal, as it recognized cellular organization as the most basic and ancient divergence in the tree of life. The other three kingdoms, Protista, Plantae, and Animalia, were all composed of eukaryotic organisms, making this division a cornerstone of the classification system. The four-kingdom system brought several advantages over its predecessors. It provided a more natural and accurate grouping by recognizing the fundamental difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, a distinction absent in earlier systems. It also offered dedicated kingdoms for the vast diversity of microorganisms, which were previously awkwardly placed. However, it wasn't perfect. A major theoretical inconsistency was the continued grouping of fungi with Plantae. Fungi, while sharing some superficial resemblances with plants, are heterotrophic, obtaining nutrients by absorption, and have cell walls made of chitin, not cellulose. These unique features indicated a separate evolutionary lineage, setting the stage for Whittaker's five-kingdom system, where fungi finally received their own kingdom. Here are 7 hard-level questions to deepen your understanding. How did the development of microscopy influence the transition from a two-kingdom to a multi-kingdom system? Explain the fundamental cellular difference that led to the creation of the kingdom Monera. Compare and contrast the cell wall composition and nutritional modes of Plantae and Monera. Discuss two significant advantages of the four-kingdom classification over the earlier two-kingdom system. Why was the placement of fungi a major limitation in the four-kingdom system? Briefly describe the typical mode of reproduction in Monera and Protista. And finally, what role did Edward Chutton play in the conceptualization of the four-kingdom system? Take your time to formulate comprehensive answers. All right, it's time for the ultimate challenge. The hardest level will push your understanding, connecting the four-kingdom classification to broader scientific contexts and competitive insights. The four-kingdom classification system is not merely a taxonomic list but a reflection of profound shifts in scientific understanding. Its emergence is intrinsically linked to the microscope revolution of the 17th to 19th centuries. Before this, classification was limited to macroorganisms, leading to Linnaeus' two kingdoms. However, as microscopy advanced, revealing a hidden world of diverse microorganisms, the inadequacy of the two-kingdom system became glaring. The realization that some organisms lacked basic cellular structures like a nucleus, prokaryotes, while others possessed them, eukaryotes, was a monumental biological discovery, forcing scientists to rethink the fundamental organization of life and pave the way for more complex, phylogenetically informed classifications. The conceptual engineering of the four-kingdom system by scientists like Haeckel and Copeland involved meticulously dissecting observed biological differences to establish new taxonomic boundaries. Haeckel's creation of Protista was an early attempt to design a category for diverse eukaryotes that didn't fit existing molds, acknowledging their unique blend of characteristics. The crucial step was the formal separation of Monera, prokaryotes, from Protista, eukaryotes, based on the presence or absence of a membrane-bound nucleus. This wasn't just about grouping, it was about recognizing a fundamental evolutionary divergence at the cellular level. This distinction between simple, ancient cellular machinery and more complex, compartmentalized eukaryotic cells became the bedrock upon which subsequent, more refined classification systems would be built. Let's delve into the detailed biological distinctions of each kingdom. Monera, encompassing bacteria and cyanobacteria, are prokaryotic, meaning their genetic material is not enclosed in a nucleus and they lack membrane-bound organelles. Their cell walls are typically composed of peptidoglycan. Protista, on the other hand, are eukaryotic, largely unicellular organisms, incredibly diverse in their nutrition, photosynthetic, ingestive, absorptive, and motility, often representing a catch-all for eukaryotes not fitting other kingdoms. Plantae are multicellular, eukaryotic photoautotrophs with cellulose cell walls, exhibiting organized tissues and often alternation of generations. Animalia are multicellular, eukaryotic heterotrophs lacking cell walls, typically motile, with complex organ systems. The engineering insight here is that this system attempted to group organisms based on key evolutionary innovations, the advent of the prokaryotic cell, then the eukaryotic cell, and finally, multicellularity with specialized feeding or energy production strategies. The four-kingdom system, while eventually superseded by the five-kingdom system, left an indelible legacy. It fundamentally shifted biological thought by establishing cellular organization, prokaryotic versus eukaryotic, as a primary criterion for classification, a concept that remains central today. It provided a much-needed framework for microbial diversity, which was previously ignored or miscategorized. Its limitations, particularly the grouping of fungi with plants, were not failures but rather signposts for further refinement. These inconsistencies highlighted the need for an even more nuanced understanding of evolutionary relationships, directly inspiring R. H. Whitaker's five-kingdom system. Thus, the four-kingdom classification serves as a crucial intermediate step, demonstrating the iterative and progressive nature of scientific inquiry and classification towards a more accurate phylogenetic representation of life. Now, let's tackle the first 5 hardest-level questions. Analyze the socio-scientific impact of advanced microscopy on the prevailing Linnean two-kingdom classification system. Discuss the critical contributions of both Ernst Haeckel and Herbert Copeland in the development of the four-kingdom classification. Elaborate on the defining cytological features that distinguish organisms in kingdom Monera from those in kingdom Protista. From a phylogenetic perspective, explain why Protista is often considered a catch-all or paraphyletic group within the four-kingdom system. Compare and contrast the nutritional strategies and cell wall compositions across all four kingdoms, highlighting key evolutionary adaptations. Take your time to formulate comprehensive, insightful answers. And here are the remaining 5 hardest level questions to truly challenge your understanding. Evaluate the strengths of the four-kingdom classification in addressing biological diversity, particularly concerning microbial life. Critically assess the primary biological inconsistencies that necessitated the separation of fungi from plantae, leading to the five-kingdom system. How did the conceptual formalization of prokaryote and eukaryote by Edward Chutton directly influence the structure of the four-kingdom classification? Discuss how the four-kingdom system provided a more natural classification compared to its predecessors, considering the criteria used. And finally, project how advancements in molecular biology, such as ribosomal RNA sequencing, have further refined or challenged the boundaries established by the four-kingdom system. Good luck! And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the four-kingdom classification. We've journeyed from the basic definitions to competitive level insights, understanding its historical context, scientific principles, and its vital role in the evolution of biological classification. Remember, learning is a continuous process, and each step builds on the last. For more engaging and comprehensive educational content across various subjects and classes, make sure to visit synapse.omaps.in. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for regular updates and more fascinating lessons. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning. See you in the next session.